There's a quiet truth about cats who grow up ignored. They become animals who struggle to believe they deserve touch at all. They walk into a room and press themselves against the wall. They hear your voice and flinch, not because they were hit, but because they were never spoken to. They sit near you, close enough to feel your warmth, but never close enough to ask for it, as if distance is their only safe language. This is not because they lack the desire for connection. It's because the foundation of their sense of safety was built in silence, in neglect, in rooms full of people who simply looked the other way. And here's the part that makes this unsettling. What happens to an ignored cat mirrors something painfully familiar in human behavior. Because the psychology of abandonment doesn't belong to one species. It belongs to every living thing that ever needed to be seen and wasn't. Have you ever watched a cat sitting perfectly still by a window, staring at nothing? Most people find it peaceful. But if you've ever rescued a cat that was ignored for months or years, you know that stillness isn't peace. It's resignation. It's the quiet aftermath of giving up. Because here's what most people don't understand. Cats are not the emotionally detached creatures we've been told they are. That myth, that cats don't care, that they don't need you, is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings in animal behavior. And it causes real damage. Because when we believe a cat doesn't need attention, we give ourselves permission to withhold it. Studies in animal cognition have shown that cats form genuine attachment bonds with their caregivers. They recognize your voice. They distinguish your footsteps from a stranger's. They monitor your emotional state. But they don't show it the way dogs do. And that's precisely the problem. Because their need is quieter. It gets dismissed. And what gets dismissed long enough eventually disappears. Not the need itself, the expression of it. An ignored cat doesn't stop wanting connection. It stops believing connection is possible. Think about what that means. A kitten is born wired for contact. Its entire nervous system is built around proximity to another heartbeat, warmth, sound, touch. When those things are given, the kitten develops confidence. It explores. It plays. It trusts the world enough to be curious about it. But when those things are withheld, when a kitten meows and no one comes, when it rubs against a leg and gets pushed away, when it sits in a shelter cage for weeks without a single hand reaching in, something begins to change. Not just in behavior, in the architecture of the brain itself. The nervous system begins to interpret the world as a place of threat. And the cat adapts, not by thriving, by shrinking. Let's talk about what that shrinking actually looks like. Because it's not always obvious, the most ignored cats are often the ones we describe as easy. The quiet ones. The ones who sleep in the corner and never knock anything off the table. We praise them for being low maintenance. But low maintenance isn't a personality trait. It's a trauma response. An ignored cat learns quickly which behaviors get results and which ones don't. If meowing doesn't bring food, the cat stops meowing. If rubbing against your hand doesn't lead to petting, the cat stops approaching. Over time, the cat doesn't just change what it does. It changes what it expects. And expectations shape identity in animals and in humans. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because you've seen this pattern before, not in a cat, in a person. The child who stopped raising their hand because the teacher never called on them. The partner who stopped saying, "I love you," because it was never said back. The friend who stopped calling because they were always the one reaching out. Withdrawal isn't apathy, it's protection. Some ignored cats become hyper-independent. They refuse to sit on your lap. They eat alone. They sleep in the farthest corner of the house. People say, that cat just doesn't like people. But that's not independence. That's a wall built brick by brick from every moment of being overlooked. Other ignored cats go in the opposite direction. They become desperately clingy. They follow you room to room. They cry when you leave. They need obsessively, because deep inside, they are terrified the attention will vanish again. And it usually does, because the very neediness that comes from being ignored often pushes people further away. It's a cruel cycle. And then there's the third response, the one that breaks my heart the most. The cat that becomes aggressive, not because it's mean, but because pain that isn't witnessed eventually turns into rage. A cat ignored long enough doesn't know how to process affection when it finally comes. Touch feels threatening. Kindness feels suspicious. And so it lashes out. Not at you, really. At the confusion of finally being offered what it had given up hoping for. How many people do you know who push away the very love they desperately want? How many people sabotage relationships not because they don't care, but because they were never taught that care was safe? The psychology is identical. The species is different. The wound is the same. Here's another layer most people never consider. When a cat is ignored in a multi-cat household, the damage cuts even deeper. Because the cat isn't just being ignored by humans. It's watching other cats receive the attention it doesn't get. It sees another cat being petted. Another cat being called by name. Another cat being welcomed onto the bed. The ignored cat doesn't just feel invisible. It feels chosen for invisibility. As if there's something about them specifically that doesn't deserve to be seen. And the cat at the bottom of that hierarchy doesn't fight for position. It internalizes the message. I am less than. I am the one who gets left behind. You know this feeling. You felt it in a family where one sibling got more praise. In a friendship group where you were always the last to be texted back. The ignored cat carries the same wound. It just can't name it. And the physical effects are real. Ignored cats develop stress-related illnesses, over-grooming that leads to bald patches, urinary issues from chronic anxiety, loss of appetite, a weakened immune system. Emotional neglect doesn't just hurt feelings. It hurts cells. It rewires the nervous system. It shortens lives. So the question becomes, can an ignored cat heal? Yes, but not quickly, not easily, and not without patience from someone who understands that trust, once broken, doesn't rebuild on a schedule. The first thing an ignored cat needs is not affection. It's predictability, a consistent feeding time, a quiet voice that shows up at the same hour, a hand that doesn't grab, but simply rests nearby, letting the cat decide when to close the distance. Because for an ignored cat, the scariest thing in the world isn't being alone, it's hoping again. And this is where most people fail. They adopt a rescue cat, shower it with love for the first week, and get frustrated when the cat hides under the bed. They interpret the hiding as rejection. But it's not rejection, it's testing. The cat is asking a question it's been asking its entire life. Are you gonna stay? That question doesn't get answered with one gesture. It gets answered with 100 small moments. With showing up even when the cat doesn't respond. With sitting in silence next to the hiding spot, not forcing anything, just being present. With saying through your actions, I'm not going anywhere, and you don't have to perform for my love. And here's the part we never talk about. The people who are best at healing ignored cats are almost always people who were ignored themselves. They recognize the flinch. They understand the hiding. They don't take the distance personally because they know what it's like to need distance as armor. There's a quiet bond between the human who was overlooked as a child and the cat who was overlooked in a shelter. They see each other in ways that don't require words. The human doesn't force the cat out from under the bed because they remember what it felt like when someone forced them to be okay before they were ready. And maybe that's the most important lesson the ignored cat teaches us. That the absence of a cry is not the absence of pain. That silence is not consent. That just because someone or something has stopped asking for love doesn't mean they've stopped needing it. So if you have a cat that hides, a cat that flinches, a cat that sits just out of reach, watching you with eyes that want to trust but don't know how, don't give up on it. Don't label it as broken or difficult or aloof. Understand that everything it does is a response to everything that wasn't done for it. And if you were that person, if you were the one who learned to shrink, who convinced yourself that your needs were a burden, who built walls so tall you forgot there was a world on the other side, let the ignored cat remind you of something. Healing doesn't require you to become loud. It requires one thing: someone who stays, someone who shows up again and again without condition, until the part of you that gave up starts to believe again. Because the truth about the ignored cat, and maybe the truth about you, is this: you were never truly invisible. You were simply waiting to be seen.